Hey everyone, Matt from Soundrolling.com, and I'm here with Greg Albert. I got that right, didn't I? Greg Albert.
Uh, Albert. A lot of people. That's
Albert.
fine. I'm used to it.
Fantastic. And Albert. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and yes, welcome. So we are live, and Greg is in South Africa, which is very cool. So we're going to try and get some perspectives on what is going down in South Africa. But firstly, how are you doing, Greg?
I'm fine, thank you. It's nice and sunny here, and a bit of wind, but I'm inside my home studio, and sort of working in between projects as one does.
Fantastic. Well, it is absolutely miserable here, and that is true English style. Now winter is coming, it's horrible. So, Greg, you're a sound mixer, so tell me what you've been, well, and you do post-production, I guess, as well, partly.
Yeah, it all started back in 2000 when I did a 3-year major in location and post-production. The theory was all there, and I had a great toolbox of knowledge of the workflows as sound would have it. But the actual industry or film, as you know, there's a lot of practicality put into it. So I moved on to location sound in 2002, and was a boom swing for 6, and then started my own location sound company as well for in 2008, and bought some gear and was mixing, so to date, opened up a post-production facility called Rhapsody Recording with my partner Matt James, and currently our focus is to offer the sort of extended workflow for the local market predominantly. In South Africa, we're fortunate enough to have a growing local market still, and with the exposure of international clients. So at the moment, I'm in between servicing those two categories.
Fantastic. It's kind of similar to what I do. I don't. It'd be interesting to hear kind of how you wanted to kind of bridge both kind of workflows. I think for me, it was just to kind of see the kind of quality of my work all the way through, essentially, just to make sure that, because I was already having the conversations on set with people, and obviously knew the story, went through everything, knew what I had, it kind of became, it kind of made more and more sense, especially on kind of bigger like indie features, to see things all the way through, just to save time and do even better work, just knowing what was on set. Was that similar for you?
Yeah. For the last sort of 5 years, I've been exposed to a kind of process where I felt I was more of a peer number on the job, to how the service production companies would give you the opportunity that say, oh, here's a package, here's your money, come onto the job if the money's right, you know, and then you end up just multi-record, I feel, and the content is given over and the production leaves the country. So that's as far as the international co-productions. I'm quite enjoying the fact that I wasn't getting my creative input back into the project. With regards to the smaller independent stuff that I am exposed to, I'm probably recording some of the best stuff I have in years, based on the fact that I have the ability to be in right from the pre-production. Like you mentioned, listening to your own sound was a very rewarding point, and that's definitely of what I'm doing with my workflows now. Is I'm getting to understand exactly what my ship specs sound like through, and actually going into dialogue editing, because I understand that part of the delivery too. It makes me a stronger production sound mixer, because I'm able to call, you know, when there are situations happening, I make the right decision based on my equipment and what I know it's going to sound right. So yeah, yeah, we try to do everything from the beginning to the end. It's very tricky for a client to understand that because it's not the norm when you have a principal and post-production budget and everything splits anyway. I think that holding the integrity of the quality really lies in over something and monitoring it later. And I have my post-production facility right up front because in this role, once we finished with our project, we hand over these files, and offline goes through a whole bunch of multi-tracks, and they read reports mainly, but they don't understand the sound perhaps, if it's or they got too much visual content to go through, so they're not really looking for stuff in sound. So to make a long-winded story short, by the end, we're fixing up more than we should. And this thing is internationally recognized as, oh, we're fixing up sound. And then you get those comments on location going, oh, we'll ADR it, we'll fix it later. But it really doesn't have to be like that. And you can save a hell of a lot of money if you just had your sound team producing alongside you right from the start. So that's how I'm trying to link it and change the mindset.
Yeah, I think it makes, but the thing is, it's making more sense on both sides. It makes technically less work for you, but it's more value for them, and because it's less time for you, it's cheaper for them as well. So it's kind of a win-win. I think you're slightly breaking up still. So there's like, I don't know how to describe this, but you know when you put your mouse kind of over this window, you get at the top, like there's like a phone button, like a settings, and then there's kind of, if you click on, so next to left of settings, there's like adjust bandwidth. And if you put that on medium, maybe that'll help things. It'll probably zoom in your camera as well, but I don't know if you can see it at the top.
Okay. Okay, I've just taken it one notch down.
Yeah, maybe
that helps.
Awesome, cool. But yeah. So what type of projects are you kind of going in between at the moment? Are they kind of indie features? Are they TV? What are they?
In the sort of last 6 years, I've avoided the short format commercials because as a self-employed person, you aren't always reliant on doing location sound on TBC because they've kind of written us out of it a long time ago where you have a product and a voiceover. So I moved away from commercials, and because I really love storytelling, stayed in features for a very long time. And I don't, or haven't actually, I don't think I've ever done a reality TV show because I like the I like the approach of not just hitting record and seeing what we get later. I like taking a script and really finding the art of sound in it and what I can truly deliver to a scene. And the format on set is what I enjoy as well, watching the process happen. So features is what I've always stayed in, and at the moment we are doing, because I've just opened up this recording facility in March, we're doing a fair amount of, you can call it work for test, but short films for the local market. Like I said, and we are growing with it. So although my peers are working on a lot of international co-productions at the moment, which are happening in South Africa, we've got things like Black Sails and Resident Evil and Dominion, all those shows happening. I've just focused on the local industry for the last couple of months.
Fantastic. And what's the local industry like at the moment? I know in London it's there's always loads of short films, not just from like all the different film schools, but just generally independent from kind of all walks of life. It's quite surprising sometimes who kind of comes up with a script or gets involved to direct a piece. But also there's loads of kind of social content, so it's not kind of TVC, but it's kind of for the online kind of viral market. I don't know if is that something similar in South Africa?
I have been exposed to the concept, which I think is more international, because we got things like Facebook, and we watch a lot of media online, and I see it changing from 30 seconds to 15 seconds, and I've even been exposed to 1-minute clips. So there is a lot of online content being targeted and created for. But with regards to the local film industry, because of the incentives that the government has given for rebates, it's opened up finances for films. And I think with the many demographics we have in our country, there's a lot of untold stories. We had a certain genre that was quite consistent, and it was resonated from our history in the political sense in South Africa. We found that the actual titles and genres are slowly starting to change. We've gone from rom-com, political heavy sort of storytelling to more adventurous. There's been some comedy, but at least there's something being made. I think we're developing script writing a lot more. Our technical abilities are there, which is great, because we've always been a service industry for the international market based on our currency, which has afforded us to have that exposure as technicians to work with great people and great projects. So our skill sets is there, our resources are there, we are just developing our stories. And with regards to this incentive, it's added to a momentum where we can actually live off our own industry. But it's like I say, I think another 5 years would put that benchmark where it needs to be. But it's exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And what made that kind of incentive come around for the local market? I can understand. Or was it kind of a byproduct of kind of international negotiations?
The Department of Trade and Industry is head up by a guy named Rob Davis, and he went to America last year, I think. And it was the first sort of tier that you had to reach in getting this incentive was based on a monetary sum of how much you spent on making a film. And he said to Barack Obama, how do I sort of stimulate the market? And in a week, he took this bar from, I think it was 12 million down to 500,000, which has opened up the local industry, basically. So we're still sitting on 3 to 6 and 6 to 10 million rand projects. And we're also looking at more of our projects being co-produced with the French, English, mostly Europe, actually. I don't think there's been many co-productions on a small film scale with America or Australia. So the actors are also the directors most of the time. The producers are going to international and finding collaboration to bring back. I think the currency, the rates are still very much part of us being able to get a certain set. You know, if we got, I don't know, £1 million, it's like 20 million rand, which is double the size of our 10 million rand film. So we can do a lot with it. Like I say, we've got the service, the technical abilities, and the equipment. It's just that a finance and a good story line. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, just especially because I find the local market is obviously going to be the one that that gives you the most kind of, I don't know, it's because it's so closely related to your to where you are. It's kind of not in kind of Hollywood land. It's the stories that you're telling, I guess, kind of, do they mean more to you in that kind of way?
The story's been told. It's quite an interesting question because I've lived here all my life, and I've noticed this evolution from where we were in 1994. I've also seen it in our industries, entertainment-wise. Grow industry was put onto an international quality level in 2003 already. The disappointing fact about our music and have labels or record labels to support these artists, and they are still, you know, working day jobs, and they are great, but there's no support for that art. With regard to told here, the implementation of the topics are sometimes good and sometimes not. I don't think we have quite the scope or the business model, if you want to call it, reach an international level. So our stories are set here, played here, and stays here. And I think we've got to find a method in getting it into what's really hard and always been that way is that we have different languages, which is hard to digest in America or some of those others. So unless it's an all-out English film, it's not going to travel too far or be accepted by certain. So
that's all right.
Greg, I was speaking. Hello. I'm fine, thank you. I'm just in a meeting at the moment. Could I call you back? Thank you. I'll get it to call you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, bye. Always got to pick up the phone. You never know when that next job's going to be. But that was the mother-in-law. So.
That's brilliant. So, in terms of your, what's it like in terms of your setup? Let's talk a bit about gear. What do you have for your location? Gear is an interesting topic. When I decided to start buying gear, first of all, I must just say right now, there's no location sound store in South Africa, none. So I would say 7 to 8 years ago, when we were moving from, I suppose, PD4 machines, DAP machines onwards, and we got access to be able to research and to hear what people were saying about gear. So I've always bought my gear based on conversation and reading about the spec sheets. When I shipped Seam at 5U, it was $2,200, and our currency has always been bad. So I've really bought gear the best that I could, but never had the ability to actually test different types of gear up against each other before purchasing. And I wish I had that ability. Maybe one of these days I'll open up a store in Cape Town. But as far as gear goes, I've stayed with sound devices. My card lies Professional Sound Services in New York, and so I call them and read about gear and sort of order it, and then it comes, package and plug it in. But I've got a 788T as my main recorder with a CL8 controller. I work out of VEG because I find the mobility best on most productions, because you have to go from a cart into picking up a scene, or our terrain locally is beaches, mountains. The reason why films come up is because of those landscapes. So although we do have the Cape Town film studios, we're mostly outdoors and we have to be mobile based on the terrain. So I work on a bag. I've got Electrosonics radio mics. My front end is Ships, which I have a Seam at 5U, and I have this Seam 41 cap for interiors. I've also got the good old 816, 416. And I use Maxi Panamic boom poles. I've got one nice little ambient boom for inside.
Yeah, that's another phone call. I can wait.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, things are going off. Okay. No, the whole world just went off here. Okay. Sorry about that.
No.
What else? I've got an RF a venue antenna system with a PSC multi-coupler which fits in the bag and all powered off MP1 batteries basically. I don't have many radio mics because I don't like them.
Yeah.
So I tend to rent them in when I need them on a production. I only physically own 2. I'd rather buy good boom mics and have 2 boom swingers rather than 5 radios. And I think most people would agree with me, but it depends on the pace of the production and also the flexibility that the director needs in certain times. So I'm not full, I'm not against multi-tracking completely, and I will have radio mics in my track count, but wherever possible, I try to go with good perspective with sound. And we do have good boom swingers in this country. We need to stimulate the market a little bit more and give back and empower on that front. But I keep it simple most of the time. I keep it small and effective, and the teams that we have, you only get a 3-man sound team most of the time. I don't think we'd really afford the luxury of having a 4th person. So yeah, I would like to upgrade, and I'm going to move on from the sound devices onto Saxcom eventually. I find, based on that pace, the Saxnet system appealing, and also the ability to have most of your equipment record and do a remix on it valuable.
Yeah, it's really interesting the advances that are still coming. You're kind of they've kind of set a really interesting groundwork to just keep building across. It's all your kit at the moment is pretty much the same as mine in terms of I've just got a 688 instead at the moment because I do a lot of kind of ENG stuff. But then I've got Lectros, then I've got I went with the Super C-Mitt just to have 2 microphones and pay twice as much, and then and then Lectrosonics, and then DPA Labs. And it's interesting. It's always interesting about the radio miking situation, just because it's kind of expected. It is useful, but again, it's making sure that people try and understand that the boom is it's like the £3,000 mic is going to work a lot better than the £200 mic, like buried in clothes. It's just trying to get that kind of fact across. And
it's something I do bring up with regards to the directors that I meet locally, or any director really. I don't ask this question to make them seem stupid, but just to see where they're at understanding sound. I said to them, well, you understand what a 32mm lens is and an 80, and you know the difference between the two. And then I ask them, well, do you know what a super cardioid microphone is? And they have no clue. Some of them do. And it just gives me a representation of what their level of understanding about sound is, and how, because indirectly they probably want all that naturalism that a boom mic offers, the perspective, the trueness that matches with picture, that they're not quite sure which mic it is. And you'll probably find the same person asking, oh, just put a radio mic on and let's get on with it. So I try to coach in the pre-production stages already, when I do the script analysis and location scouting, and just reassure the whole situation can be handled on a boom.
Nice. Well, it is an important thing of being able to judge how much. After all, you're being brought on as kind of the specialist of location sound. Is there anything you do to kind of help? So if there's a director that doesn't really know, is it just then a process of saying, well, how do you want it to sound? How do you want to what do you want the feel like? Do you offer examples, or how do you get that kind of I guess creative
message
sound
across?
Yeah.
I speak to them about metaphors related to the camera, and I try to keep it like that because of the understanding that they might have with lenses and perspectives, because they're always visualizing shots and place circular space before anything else. And so I speak to them about pickup fields related to lens sizes and what they're seeing, and in relation to the performance. And the performance could have a certain amplitude, it could have all point visually, and I try to use as many of these terms to help them understand what the boom microphone is doing in relationship to that picture. And most of the time, once I get through a couple of those points, they go, "Oh, okay," because they can see it more than hear it. Sorry, everyone's trying to phone me today.
It's good.
I'm going to switch off my phone for a little bit.
Okay. Dangerous move.
Yeah, I'll give it about 15 because it's lunchtime. Yeah, I think everyone wakes up on a Wednesday midday, right, and tries to do things. And also, our season's starting in at the end of the month. The sun's come out. The visas are getting booked, and the phone calls are starting to happen. Where was I? So that is what I do. Is I use the camera. I use the performance, the things that the director would understand more, and I try to put that into sound terms. There's actually quite a lot of them that you could use. Anything from the way light travels to particles travel, all the way down to the way it's picked up in a polar pattern or a lens angle or a focal point. The way it's, I don't even say sound speed on sets anymore. I say quantizing. So that's my new thing. I've been using it actually for a couple of years because there's no moving parts and we are not linked to the camera and the time code's doing everything. So that I always get a head turn on. And then I explain it to the AD and he gets it and it all goes on. But so I try to use the whole process of the camera and link it to the sound.
I really like that.
And then with
oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah. I'll stop there. You said you liked something. We had a bit of a delay.
Yeah, sorry. I like the lens metaphor. I think that's really good for pickup patterns and camera angles. So if you're on an 80mm, then you can have a
So now you got the next step. I would describe to them if we're in a noisy environment. I'd say, okay, well, think of it as the stop on your lens. So if your stop is set in correctly, you're going to have a dark image, or if you record it as a dark image and lift it up later, you're going to have a lot more noise. So if I've got an actor that's whispering in a noisy environment and I lift it up later, my signal to noise ratio is going to be a lot more. So that's my reason for going, speak up or give me a theater whisper or something. Or let's change the location, or give me a shot where I can have the microphone not looking into the background as much, and then I'll change my lens for that setup. So yes, you can use, I think, a lot of the terminology sound-wise and relate it back to camera. That's my main method in getting most people on set to sort of understand. I don't think there's many that would understand sound, so I try to use it a lot. And then also when we're covering a scene, to keep that background, that signals to noise ratio consistent, because we're moving with the lights and everything does do that shift. And especially after lunch, somebody comes and puts a generator closer or something. So you've really got to keep control of that. And once it comes back into editorial or the offline and it's cut together, it's final sound, isn't it? If you can just achieve that kind of control or get people to understand what you're trying to do with the knowledge that they have, already. So
yeah, it's
that's
really,
where I
really
get.
useful. Yeah.
That's what I do to get away from radio works.
Nice, nice. No, it's yeah, it's beautiful. Even on productions where I just have a boom op and it's just me. On a couple of short films, we've double boomed it just with me kind of doing, because it's just two actors and you just have the same mics, and it just sounds kind of real. It sounds kind of there, and you don't have to do that much kind of EQ or kind of just magic in post production. So in terms of when you get it into post production workflow, I believe you work with, is it Matt? Who's your colleague? How do you?
Yeah, my colleague's Matt. His name's Matt James. We studied together, and I've known him for about 16 years or so. In 2005, we managed a recording studio together, and it was a great opportunity, whilst we're still young and fresh in the industry, to have a perspective on our partnership, or the way we worked, and our understanding about sound. And that was for a year, and then I left to go back into the industry, and I was second boom on a film called 10,000 BC. And then since then, I stayed in the industry, and where Matt stayed in post-production. So with his knowledge base building up, working on sound in that sense, I've done the principal photography, and we came together 3 years ago and said we should partner up, because it was certain negative stigmas attached to sound, the way I was perhaps being hired or seen as, in comparison to some of the other departments, the value of what all the effort that I was putting in to try to get all this data across, and then not quite sure what was happening with it later. And similarly with discussions with Matt, he would say, well, he's never had a conversation with the location sound mixer with productions that he's been on. And I really thought that the communication could be a lot better. And if it was, then, and I really went through it in my head. And for 3 years, we kind of made this business model about just this communication strain. And so we find out all of those little bits of problems, and just presented it to our local market now. We haven't had the opportunity on an international level, because it's such a service industry, to apply it, but it is really effective. So he's coming to set, and I'm going to post, so the overlap is a lot smoother. Also, the creative brief from the director it doesn't have to be repeated later. We're also doing a lot of script analysis, where we're finding the solutions for that film, whereas a lot of copy-paste workflows, which might not be applicable to each film, because each film is telling a different story. Scenes, workflow-wise, you'll probably go, okay, well, I can do this in 3 different ways, but which one suits that project? And that gets ironed out, and having him there and his input is really reassuring. And having it said then and there before we even shoot gives the creative and the manufacturers, sort of thumbs up, going, cool, we've got it covered. And it's that reassurance that we give from the start. And like you said earlier, it makes my life a whole lot easier when I have the acceptance from the director, the producer, and post-production going, right, he's doing that for a reason. I'm not overproducing or underproducing a scene either. I had that once in an interview with a director who produced my soundtrack. I was like, oh, really? Because I think we individually have our own methods, and we get given a lot of control. And nobody's really monitoring what we do on principal photography as much. So I think we'd want to give it everything based on the fact that we're not quite sure how it's going to be handled later, or we never got that debrief or that kind of detail that a DOP does. So we tend to throw all the track counts at it, and really, at the end of the day, it's it's microphones that don't match, and the noise floor increases for every microphone that you put out onto a scene. So it makes post-production actually. So we think we're providing everything and all the options. They don't have time to go through all those options, and also the vice versa. The experience that Matt is getting from learning from me is invaluable as a sound mixer as well. He's doing a lot less processing and finding the good sound quicker and working with less tracks. So his time spent in post is a lot less, and actually it costs the client less. We did a commercial the other day where we had a director's brief was, oh, I want 4 of these actors in a vehicle. They've got a kind of theme, they're overlapping, and I don't want to do any ADR, and we're on a process trailer. So in any case, we worked a month on that particular project, and that was just for a 1 minute clip. But having the ability to go through all the debriefing and planning, we all know that there's probably 3 different ways you can do people in a car speaking. I ended up doing it with 3 mics, although there were 4 people. And by the second take, the director was happy, and we booked the whole day in post-production, and we only used 3 hours. So it really, really does work. This collaboration with a post-production facility. It's a business model that I'm happy to have, sorted out with Matt, and I think it'll do well, especially when you in our market where you don't have a lot of money. Like I said, 3 to 6 million rand, and you've got to shoot a whole film. Rather produce it correctly, and I just wish that the guy spending $250 million also had done that or does that. I look at some of the shows down here, and it really is just mic everything, hit record, and it's somebody else's problem. And I really can't do that. I really can't.
It's good, and it's an interesting business model as well, because the $250 million dollar films or whatever, they're using their kind of post-production supervisor to do all the kind of pre-production. The mixers, there still seems to be that kind of, I don't know, out of the people that I've talked to, sometimes there's a lot of communication, and sometimes it's kind of, you just turn up and you just do your own workflow, and you know that everyone's kind of happy with it because you did all the previous ones before. But it is interesting about that communication aspect, and especially just repeating the kind of vision again from a director's standpoint, in terms of, okay, well, I've gone through the shoot now what do I want it to be? It's not kind of continuous in a way sometimes, because they're looking over the footage over and over again, and that's when I find that people are starting to kind of change their minds about certain directions.
Yes, and this can be ironed out in that pre-production phase, and you find that directors might want to go 2 or 3 a scene, but they can't visualize it quite yet without shooting it. So if a scene has a particular sound cue or point in it that will give that option, then at least it's planned for, and we're recording it. With post-production being to fix up sound, even with the ADR facts, we're trying to avoid it as much as possible by identifying, say for instance, it was a rain machine rig and that's the scene. So I'll break up my Rode NT2 shotgun mic with my rain cover and get a guide track. I'm not going to be throwing lots of tracks at it. And then getting the actors afterwards for wild lines and using that as a base and going from there as a solution. So what it means is that we've planned for another 5 minutes for that day, or once the actors try, and that could save you quite a fair amount of applying that mindset.
And in terms of when you actually get into post-production, what's your role in terms of a post-production aspect?
I don't go through the whole post-production personally with regards to that's Matt's gig. But what I try to do is as much as the prepping for at least the dialogue stem, because that's been my focus. I also then look over the sound design, also based on what the brief is being given and where I've been recording and what I have been help out with, just the preparations of these stems, and then sort of hand it over, because I also feel that too much involvement from a single source doesn't give option to the project. So I'll be too attached at that point after working 6 weeks on it, but I'll be present for the Q&A aspect, and also to if an actor's coming in, that's a familiar face. You know, if an actor's coming in for radio, it's a familiar face. It's a familiar face for the director. We've spent time already on set, although Matt has had that recognition. He's only come on every other day, and just to say hi and see how things are going, or to report back, or whatever it might be. So I would go as far as editing, and then watch Matt do the rest of it, and really learn from him, to see that the evolution from my choice on set to be finalized is quite a nice one to witness. And it's taken 15 years to get to that luxury.
Well, it's a good luxury to have, especially seeing it all the way through. I'm personally really enjoying it as well, just being able to see how other people who have much more experience in like dialogue editing and things like that, and it's just good to sometimes know kind of what you can get away with, and then when you're on set and you're thinking, okay, this is this mic is naturally sounding way too boomy, and I have no other choice because it's a radio mic X, Y, and Z. I know that there's something I can do, and I did this before, and it's all just about that experience again. That's the most valuable thing, regardless of if it's a kind of good or bad experience. You're learning either way, aren't you? It's quite interesting.
Yes. Yeah, which is something that can't be taught. So I often annually go in for a guest lecture at the colleges, the sound or film schools down in Cape Town. And 3 hours just goes by very quickly. At first I thought, how could I speak about myself and what I do for 3 hours? And I thought I'd find it hard. But actually I ran out of time before everything was finished. So there's so much that you acquire, and after 20,000 hours of sitting on a film set,
yeah, I pick up a thing.
I understand keeping things simple, and always just coming back down to that one mic source in the right place is the one thing that you should learn. Back to front.
And do you have any I'm just trying to think of more relationships on set. Like, what's your relationship in regards to the AD? Are you doing anything to try and other than kind of just introducing yourself and then going to the corner? Is there any way of?
No, I'm quite involved on I need to be, and I think that's also another bit of an experience, is that you'll find that each department has a priority in time when designing the scene. And that's that's the director's floor with the actors, and going all the way down to implementation. Each department has its priority moment. If you're aware of this flow in the setup, you can get through quite a few of putting out fires without speaking to the AD. And once you've gone through the process, I think this was learned inherently from being a boom swinger and standing on set on a cable in 816 for 6 years, just watching the departments do what they needed. And so it's more intuitive now that I can see the blocking and pick up immediately, like, that might be an issue and I need to question it, but I don't need to go to the AD directly now. I do my research. And if you do that quietly enough and sincerely enough with each department, You never really have to go to the AD, and if you do, for me, I always go with a preemptive measure, or could I have this extra one, or once you've completed that angle there, I know you're going onto that shot, I'll need that then. Or you really understand that he's today and he's thinking about a lot. So if you know more about what his thought process is, I think you'll have him on your side. If you just said, but you don't continuously do that as well, you know, the whole cry wolf thing. I think if it's very valid, most ADs will go, yeah, you know, and especially if you've preempted it. If it's last moment, then I don't think you're going to get away with it. So it's about it being alert on set, and I don't think being complacent on set is something I do too quickly. Also, from being a boom swinger, I have that sort of third ear, if you will, about changes and particularly about briefs, watching important conversations between people to pick up where things might change. So there's always a preemptive measure, and I always have more than one way of doing it. So with regards to ADs, it's yes, hello in the morning, how are you doing? And if there's anything to be said at breakfast, then I'd raise it then. If it's a technical setup, like a moving car or a sequence with machines that are out of my control, it's going to be a heavy camera day. Basically, if those, so his mind is already on grips and safety. If it's going to be anything out of the norm that is not drama driven, so I think you're already put onto that list of you're done here, everything else comes first. But if you say, I understand that I'm not a priority, but we still need to get good sound, and if we can't do a run on the process trailer, or if we can't do a run with the rain machines because the actors are not going to be comfortable enough, let's at least record the rehearsals in a static position. So then you approach the director, and actually a lot of the time I speak to the director a lot when it comes to that kind of safety aspect. So I'd rather, you can either record it before or you can record it later, and in between it's a guide track. So, you know.
Nice. I think it's very important, I guess, that whole solution orientated aspect of just you're coming and you're going, yeah, I've solved this problem, will you let me do it? And then it's kind of a yes, okay, you've solved the problem for me, I don't even have to think, I can just say yes or no. That's really cool. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, always come with a solution. I think the 12-hour day is presented with so much that if you come with problems a lot of the time, then I don't think you're going to get the voice that you need when it really counts in the situation.
No, completely. It's that cry wolf thing again. It's for people watching as well. There's kind of that are trying to get into kind of boom operating. What do you have any tips on kind of? I mean, technique is one quite hard to kind of discuss, kind of over video. But I guess more kind of just. Well, we kind of discussed more about the attitude and awareness, but do you think there's anything else which comes with being a kind of quote unquote good boom operator?
The obvious points are, you know, understanding and saying what your gear can do. I also think as a boom operator, you've got to understand every other department as thorough as you do sound. And starting out is always going to be tricky because there's that physical hurdle to get that boom to be part of you, and not think about what you're doing and being observant to the situation more. So that takes practice regardless. Regardless whether you've got an 816 or the full Zeppelin or you've got a tiny little microphone, you know, that position you've got to get used to first of all. I think not being complacent and observant, we've spoken about, understanding all the departments is, I think, a big key, because you're the last person to apply your job. So when you have everyone else has more time than you, it's best to it's best to be in the right place at the right time, and you can only do that by being observant. So not being complacent and running off when people aren't speaking. It doesn't mean you're not working. Asking lots of questions with the sound mixer, if you're new, is a good one, because learning what the sound mixer likes and his approach is going to help you out with your day, to make judgments. When you form a relationship over many years with a production sound mixer, you hardly speak at all. But I think if you're coming up into a sound team, it's, get a lot of understanding about what he likes or she likes, and by learning the gear and its placement, you can walk up and have a good conversation, going, yeah, I think I'm gonna use this mic because it handles that SPL better, or we've got a 3K boost on the mic itself, and that will help with because we've got lots of wind, or so having those discussions, you got to understand the gear. Definitely form relationships with the camera department and wardrobe, and the gaffer, really. But I think lighting is pretty easy to understand, and you should always have more than one place to swing from. And on the physical aspects, again, you should be able to, I call it an ambidextrous swing. I don't know if you can either go that way or that way,
right?
And if you can't swing both ways or operate both ways, then you'll find at some point you'll be blinded to the camera, and you'll have your back to the camera. I always encourage a sort of triangle setup where you're facing the camera at all stages. So if I don't know if I could draw something like a triangle, but your source, your key light, and your camera, you should be on the opposite side, forming a triangle all the time. That way you can see if the camera moves. You can also, if you're close enough to some degree, see if it's a zoom lens, if it's moving. Because if you just put one of those bars into the it's a zoom bar and you put a bit of tape at the end, you can see if it goes up and down. So you can see if they're zooming during the shot as well, to keep up with the perspective change. So you should always look at the camera, and also if the focus puller is giving you a new edge, or feeling that you're dipping a little bit. It could be a handheld shot. You could be pushing the edge, and he's just looking at you. And well, actually, that's when they're on the follow for people go off the Preston, so it's quite hard to see the focus puller these days. But then again, the other reason by that triangle position is then you can see the relationship from the lens to the artist. So when you're taught about that imaginary line of the lens. Yeah. And if it's anamorphic, it goes the other way. You're fresh. You can always start painting that in your mind until that becomes second nature, where you can walk up to a prime lens, or shout for the lens size. If it's changed during the take, then you know exactly where to readjust to. And so you see that relationship between the camera and the artist, as well as that 90-degree angle. At that point in the triangle, you could walk towards the camera if you got a reflection, because reflections occur most of the time at 90 degrees. So you can adjust yourself easier in relationship to the source from the camera, without moving your angle of your microphone too much. So you can pick up, if the sun pops out or something, they're always playing the light sometimes, and you can do an iris ride or fix it in DaVinci, but so you can move. And then thirdly, the key source. So you're not making a big hard shadow on the target at that point. So yeah, that's one thing I would insist on teaching and getting somebody used to. And then being able to swing that other way is giving you that second position. if need be. If for instance a film inevitably will, because you've chosen that spot, they'll put a light there. So you might have to jump to the other side or turn around and do exactly the same swing, but just have that ability to surround and not feel the physical muscle pressure of the swing.
Plus, you eventually get lopsided, right? You get a really strong right.
Yeah, you get like funny shoulders, but be able to do that is something that I definitely encourage, because I didn't. When I started, for the first 3 went one way because it was hard enough with an 816 fully extended on a cable.
Yeah, I bet.
And funnily enough, when I started out, I wasn't given headphones at all either. And I think in that to a degree where you're not watching the movie, you're focusing on the set, and also you're open to instruction given, because if you're wearing headphones and you're standing with your boom, your microphone's pointing up into the air, and you're not monitoring the changes that should happen. And there's a lot to be learned about not wearing these, because somebody else is monitoring it. When you're not quite sure the microphone's capabilities, if you come from an institute of learning, you've environments and worked with cardioid polar patterns. So when you listen to a ship's mic out in the open, it just it threw me off when I first heard the 816 properly. And I remember I was doing a sunset shot, and there was an onboard monitor. When I started, it was all real 16 mil, so you never really got that luxury of onboard monitors. But when I did see one, and I heard it, and I placed the mic there, I got sucked into the movie. And there was a beat where the actors had moved off and said one line, and I didn't reach for it and got it off mic, and the sun was going down. So I always learned from that moment.
It's always, yeah, there's always those moments you're gonna get anyway. But it's an interesting point of just being able to train yourself to, well, you've got to listen to lots of things essentially. But I always remember the first couple of times of just properly nailing the kind of arc of the lenses and things like that. It's just like, what are you on? It's like, I'm gonna guess that's about there. And they're like, yeah. It's like, yeah, amazing. Awesome. So in terms
it's also to understand if you understand the scene, which is also an important thing, and understand how editing goes, then you can be predictable once again in, oh, they're going to go for the shot, they're going to do that shot, because we're down to that point. And when it gets to that, like I said, there are certain departments that take focus at that point in priority, and that would be the sound team and the focus pillar when it gets into that.
And with being a sound mixer as well, are you working with the same boom ops? What's your kind of team on production like? Do you work with the same guys, different guys?
It's generally, nice to get somebody that's going to understand your gear and the way you do things. We don't always have that luxury because there's not a huge source, a big enough one. When we have this international market seasonally happening, we are still trying to develop our local industry, so we tend not to have the key players involved. So I tend to sort of give back and find people that are perhaps just finished their course, but location sound, but have an understanding of the science at least, to try getting them involved into the local films, the short films. So that's when I mix up the team aspects of things. Comfortable with that too, because it's simplified. I think everything is simplified at that moment, and then there's place for somebody to learn. When it gets to a bigger production, I do try to work, yes, with the same people. That just takes the pressure off, because I've got to do more of my work, and I can't think about doing their work as well, or knowing that the mic's in the wrong place, or something like that. So yes, I try to go with the experienced people as much as I can, depending on the project.
Yeah, because some of them are a great training ground for everyone, especially at the start, or if it's like complex shots.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that about wraps it up. I don't want to take too much of your time. It's been an hour and it's flown by, and I know that you're in your kind of lunch break over there. So
yeah, well, I'm working from home today, not in the studio, but I had an important phone call to make for a film starting on the 6th of November. So I'm trying to work that one out. I will leave you, and thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing the rest of it, seeing the rest of your interviews or discussions.
Yeah. Well, I have 2 later today, I think, due to my mad scheduling. But thankfully, I'm also just doing kind of sound editing all week, so I have a bit of time to do that at night and this in the day. So
Okay,
yeah, it's good fun. But yeah. So
great.
for the people watching the video, I'll just kind of say goodbye, and you'll no doubt see me soon. And I'll just leave you to say the final goodbye, Greg, and then we can chat a little bit offline.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I wasn't or too technical at some point. I suppose one could catch me on the website, my website, or if somebody wants to post a question, I'll be quite happy. I look forward to seeing anyone in South Africa sometime soon.
Fantastic. And I should say that there will be, where this video will be posted on soundrolling.com, there will be a comment section, so you can post below this video, and everyone will be able to see that. And I'll let Greg know. And yeah, awesome. Cool. So that concludes the sound chat. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'll see you later.